Hey YouTubers, friends and family, this is Greg Vasquez, and I wanted to share with you a short passage in John 21, starting around verse 15. And most people kind of know this passage. This is where Jesus is asking Simon Peter, do you love me? And he says it 3 times, and at the end, he keeps telling him, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, tend to my sheep. And it grieves Simon Peter. And there's been, recent study on this that I've heard teachers teach on it. And recently was listening to a few different teachers teach on the Greek words that were used in this and thought this was really neat. What's going on here in John 21, the disciples are, after the crucifixion, fishing with Simon Peter out in the waters. And Jesus calls to them, have you made any catches? And they said no. And so he performs a miracle and they catch a bunch of fish. Peter throws himself into the water and swims ashore, and they all meet him on shore, where Jesus has cooked food for them, and they come and dine. And afterwards, Jesus goes right up to him and says to Simon Peter, Simon Peter, do you love me more than these? It doesn't say what these are, so it could be his miracles, but it's probably that Peter, was at the Last Supper saying, Lord, I won't deny you, even if all of them fall away, all of the rest of my fellow disciples, apostles, I will not deny you, And so Jesus totally could have been just asking him, do you love me more than these still, after he denied him, bringing that up, which could totally show why people were thinking that this can correlate with Peter's denial. There are other places in Scripture where Christ said, you're following me only for the loaves and fishes, so he could have been asking him as well, do you love me more than these miracles? But once he asks him this, the interesting thing is that he uses the word agape, and when Peter answers back, he uses the word phileo. And most of us know that this is brotherly love, but it's not necessarily always that way in Scripture. If you look at the word agape, it doesn't just mean God's perfect love. It can mean pure love or complete love in Scripture, and it's used that way many times. Phileo as well doesn't really commonly mean a cheaper love. It can mean I love you like a brother, which is what I believe is happening here. I love you with my whole heart. And so scholars have argued back and forth over this. Some famous ones, Ironside, and different ones. Ironside believes that this is Peter saying, I love you with a lesser love. I can't love you with the full love. But, if you really look at what this is saying, phileo does not very often used in that way in Scripture as a lesser love where someone emphasizes lesser. It usually means brotherly love. It usually means I love you like a brother with my whole heart. And it would make sense that way because Peter says, Lord, you know I love you. You're, and he says that twice. And that would mean that Peter's trying to say something positive. He wouldn't say, I love you in a cheap way, He wouldn't, build it up and then say, that in a phileo in a cheap way. And so it's really, kind of obvious to me that he's using and the way he answers back, he's using this as a positive thing. And many other scholars believe that also. And I thought that was so neat. So at first I was looking at this and going, why would Jesus use agape and Peter phileo? Because I thought maybe God was trying to show him the higher love, and Peter kept saying the lower love, and he kept trying to say no, agape, and Peter phileo. But that's not what happened. On the third time he does it, Jesus turns and actually uses the word phileo. Peter, do you phileo me? And Peter answers back, he was grieved, Lord, I love you, and uses phileo again. So the thing that's going on here, the only thing that makes sense, because Jesus used phileo the third time to ask, is that he was asking Peter, do you really love me with your whole heart? So he asks the first time, do you agape me? Peter says, Lord, I love you like a brother, with everything. As much as I love my own brother, I'd give my life. And Jesus says, feed my lambs. Then he says, Peter, do you agape me? Do you love me with a pure love? And Peter turns back and says, Lord, you know I love you with everything. And about this time, he says also, Lord, you know this. You know all things, that I love you like a brother. And so by this time, Peter realized Jesus was also questioning him deeper. And so at this time, Jesus comes back and says, tend to my sheep. The third time, Jesus says, do you phileo me? And the way that should be read, I think, that makes sense, is an inflection on the phileo. Do you really love me? Peter, do you phileo me? Really? But Peter, do you really love me with everything? And I think that's what helped really grieve Peter the third time. And it even says there that Peter was grieved because the third time he said phileo. Some people think that means the third time he said the word love, like in English, and that's just because he repeated it. But he really didn't repeat it. He changed. It was a play on words here. And so I thought that was so interesting, and it really helped me see what was going on in the way I've read this for 25 years, and now it's making a lot more sense. And the problem with scholarship, it makes it so hard, that is that most other places in Scripture, phileo and agape can be used interchangeably. Not always, but phileo can be translated into kiss, or it can be translated into affection, and I love you like a brother, and not very often used to be a cheaper love. They didn't think that way. They used this word interchangeably many times. And it's funny, you can find the word agape, and like Demas has loved, in 2 Timothy, I believe, Demas has loved this present evil world, and they use the word agape. And I don't think they're trying to say God's love. They're trying to say a very pure love, or maybe it's just the word love. That's how these words were used. And it's no wonder that in here, that they just don't, I think here they should have put God's love and brotherly love, or I love you like a brother. And because of the play on words in this case. And so I just thought that was neat, because many times we look at the word agape and we think it's an unattainable love, and that's really not the way it shows up in Scripture many times. And I just thought this was so cool, and I wanted to share this with you guys. I'm going to be doing short videos like this, just called Inspiring Moments, and just sharing things like this in the Scripture that I thought were so neat, that I just found, and hopefully they inspire you too. God bless you.